Alright everyone, we start off today with the good news that Kari Lake has indeed won against Robinson in Arizona, despite some chicanery that went on there, and I'll explain the form in which it took and why it's a little bit different from the general election in the midterms, and why you still are going to need massive turnout and a lot of poll watching and things like that. Kari Lake, of course, the Trump-endorsed candidate in the race. Robson had been endorsed by Chris Christie and Mike Pence. Pence even holding on the last day a competing rally with Trump, which probably had a tenth as many people showing up. Now, if we look at the differential, Kari Lake was ahead by nearly 10 points in the aggregate. In fact, ahead in every poll except for one single poll by Emerson that clearly was wrong, which was predictable, all the way through the election. There was basically no change in the aggregate towards the end. There was no peak or anything. There was always wiggle room. There were only 3 polling firms handling it, Trafalgar and a couple of others, but Kari Lake was obviously ahead throughout the entire race. In the final result, the lead is about 3 points. There's a differential between the final results and the polling aggregate. Now, individual polls don't mean anything. If you're matching it up against some of Trafalgar's polls, you'd say, oh my God, a 9-point swing. Either that shows velocity towards Robson or it shows shenanigans. I think that the Emerson poll was astroturfed to try to explain, an attempt to explain velocity towards Robson at the 11th hour, and they failed. And what I think happened is that there was preemptive honking going on in this particular duel, this particular primary. And that's because it's GOP held. The GOP primary is different from the general, in which the Democrats have a seat at the table with regards to checking votes, signatures, etc. You don't have that in the primaries. Normally, generally speaking, what happens is that party machinations will tilt the scales slightly. They'll put their finger on the scales for who they want in a primary battle in order to have controlled opposition candidates for the general. This happened in 2012, for example. Ron Paul was completely shafted, utterly mistreated by his party, to the point of effectively illegality in certain cases. There was a whole bus full of Ron Paul delegates that were bussed around the venue and never parked. There was a teleprompter that had a foregone conclusion with regards to a vocal vote at one point. I can remember these things because, of course, I supported Ron Paul, ended up writing him in 2012. And so what you do is if you have a controlled opposition Republican and a controlled opposition Democrat, absent any significant third-party challenge, doesn't matter who wins. You do not need, by the way, to affect the outcome in any way, shape, or form of the general election. The powers that be don't want to meddle in outside of the primaries in general elections because it's more obvious, number one, because it is much harder to pull off, number two, and more expensive, number three. The other problem for the neocons in this case is that lower-level party mechanics have been subsumed by MAGA. Bannon's people, Pressler, and people like that have gone in and they've canvassed localities, in some cases places that politicians themselves never really visit other than to maybe put up a billboard. They've canvassed them and they've successfully overhauled entire voting precincts. So the precinct captain, the poll watchers, everyone, they're all MAGA. Much more difficult, therefore, for Maricopa County to honk, have a proper fortified election, which we are looking forward to in the midterms. Pelosi has already alluded to this. It's a Bloomberg moment. It's not coincidental that she used that language. What happened is that Kari Lake won handily, and I think that there was a preemptive dump beforehand, specifically with regards to mail-in ballots. But it didn't affect the outcome. The problem is that in order to do a preemptive honking, and we're not going to talk about what we're referring to here, it's just clown noses and honking. That's all. I'm not making any insinuations about fraud or anything like that, YouTube. What happens is that you have to guesstimate. So you're guessing what the final turnout will be in the in-person polling. And they undershot the mark. That's basically what this boils down to. There will be more active shenanigans, I think, in the general election. Will they be successful? I'm hesitant to believe that they will, simply because of the huge turnout differential that must have existed here. People need to get active over the next months instead of just waiting until midterm day you should go out, knock on a door, get a friend signed up, etc., etc., etc. Make sure that you vote in person. It's much more effective that way. Let them have their preemptive honking, because clearly it doesn't always work so well. Kari Lake is not a perfect candidate, by the way. She used to be part of the legacy media. She has effectively renounced that. In fact, I think that the biggest red flag that I would have about her, that she was part of the swill media, is also potentially her biggest strength, which is that if she's being genuine, and as a potential future politician, she may very quickly become corrupted and lose that genuineness. It's entirely possible. When she gets into politics and she sees the coke lines and the backroom deals and stuff and how much money she can make, a person is definitely tempted by such things, even if they mean well when they go into Congress or into a state house. I have a feeling that a great plurality of people really do want to do a good job and then realize how unlucrative that is, and then they realize how much money they can make if they just twist the knife a couple of times. Just sell out this once. We'll get you loaded with $5 million, they say to some newcomer senator. And they've never even fathomed that much money in their life half the time, so they take the dive. And it's sort of like that famous baseball book there. Can't remember what it was called. I fucking hated The Natural, it was called. Fucking hated that book, by the way. I had to read it twice in high school. And it sort of reminds me of that. Just take a dive at the last minute. You were doing so well, you're being noble, not being corrupt, people like you, and then you say, well, but I can get mine, I can get this $5 million here, and then the rest is history. You've sold your soul to the devil, so to speak. I think that it is also a great strength, because she understands, if she is being genuine, the lies and deceit of the legacy media. So that's my reading of that. So at the end of the day, Maricopa was not capable of materializing enough totally properly signed, dated, etc. Ballots to overrun the primary there. This means it is a clean sweep for MAGA, effectively. You've got Kari Lake, you've got Masters, Rusty Bowles is gone, Meijer is gone. You came pretty close to every single MAGA figure winning, and in some cases it wasn't even close. You've got, I can't remember the name of the one that's standing for governor in Michigan, Duxley or something like that. It's pretty close to a clean sweep. It's like 5 out of 7 have been turned MAGA. MAGA has overrun the Republican Party. You're about to see Liz Cheney lose her job. That's a positive step in the right direction. And as far as the impeachers, 4 weren't running for re-election. And I think 2 now are gone, and Cheney will be gone as of her primary. So it didn't. That wasn't a great strategy for them to get re-elected. I wonder why. It's almost like backstabbing the most popular person in your entire political party does not lead to a long-term career success trajectory. Very, very interesting. Apparently these people either didn't care or actually thought that they would get away with it. I think that a lot of them hedged their bets on Trump actually being prosecuted, even though there's nothing that's capable of being prosecuted as of the January 6th hoax. And they decided to throw him under the bus. I noticed that a lot of commentators did that before, and now a lot of them have done so as well with DeSantis. And I think that they're 90% of all of the right-wing commentators on there, I think, are going to be eating some crow over the next couple of years. Just another prediction that I happen to believe will come true. That's about all. Peace out.